Good morning. Thank you for watching Amir Shakil 5858. I am Amir Budnam. I am thankful to all news resources and my team. Following are the news which have been reported by American, European, Canadian, Asian, Australian, and African channels, and of course news agencies AFP, AP, and Reuters. Now the news headlines. Ticketmaster and Live Nation are accused of suffocating the competition by U.S. government. Atlantic Canadians are under hurricane threat. Deadly state collapse in Mexico. Israel has intensified attacks on southern city of Gaza, Rafah. Colombia opened an embassy in Palestinian city. China is conducting military drill. US allowed Ukraine to use its weapon inside Russia. Supreme Court case race and political party. Russian missile kills 7 civilians in Ukraine. Kenya, major non-NATO ally of America. Women Basketball Association going international. Congress grilled more university officials regarding Palestinian protest handling. On Wall Street, Dow Jones Industrial, Nasdaq, and S&P 500 all went down. Now the news in detail.
Tonight, this new line of storms from Texas all the way north. Possible tornadoes, damaging winds, and that thunderstorm moving over New York City, downing trees and power lines. Thousands of flights affected. And tonight, hear the new outlook for Memorial Day across the country. Ginger is here. Also tonight, police releasing new video showing the confrontation between the world's #1 golfer, Scotty Scheffler, and a police officer directing traffic around a deadly accident in Louisville. What the video shows. Tonight, women and abortion rights in this country. The Louisiana legislature passing a first-of-its-kind bill, classifying 2 abortion pills as dangerous controlled substances. Possessing the drugs without a prescription could lead to jail time. The Justice Department filing an antitrust lawsuit to break up the parent company of Ticketmaster, accusing Live Nation and Ticketmaster of monopolizing the concert industry.
I waited in line for like 6 hours.
You'll remember the Taylor Swift concert tickets, the fans so upset. Tonight, the DOJ says Live Nation driving up prices, listing the ways they allegedly do it. Tonight, the groups allegedly targeting homes with Wi-Fi jamming equipment to knock out home security systems. Authorities breaking up what they're calling burglary tourism, where they were breaking in and how they were doing it. Horrific images, the deadly stage collapse during a rally in Mexico. At least 9 people killed. Strong winds tearing down the stage. Tonight, young women, breast cancer, and future pregnancy, what a new study reveals. Celine Dion and her deeply personal battle, what she's revealing tonight. The new hurricane forecast is out tonight. NOAA issuing its highest ever early forecast for the upcoming hurricane season and what it shows. And the remarkable new documentary about the Beach Boys, from a garage band to music legends, and your first look right here tonight.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on a Thursday night. We begin tonight with severe storms moving across the country just as millions of Americans are getting ready to travel for the Memorial Day holiday. A record number of Americans on the roads and in the air, and these new storms could be a real problem. Here in New York City, the storm that swept through today, knocking down trees and power lines. At this hour, nearly 30 million Americans from Texas all the way north under threats for possible tornadoes, dangerous winds, large hail, that system then moving its way east. All of this as the National Weather Service tonight now confirming multiple tornadoes this week touching down in Iowa, including that Carbon, Iowa tornado we showed you right here, lifting up pieces of homes. It was an EF3, and then late today, the tornado leveling Greenville, Iowa, these images right here, now upgraded to an EF4, winds up to 185 miles per hour. Those dangerous thunderstorms rolling across the New York City area today, damaging homes, trees, knocking out power tonight to thousands in the tri-state area. And then tomorrow, storms firing up from Dallas to Chicago, of course, some key travel hubs, and then moving into the Northeast through Memorial Day. Ginger Z is here with the forecast, and ABC's Trevor Ault leading us off at LaGuardia Airport tonight.
Tonight, extreme weather threatening to upend Memorial Day weekend plans for a record number of families hitting the roads and skies. Powerful storms slamming New York City this morning, 60-mile-an-hour winds taking down trees and power lines in the suburbs.
It went from 0 to 60. There was just, it sounded like a freight train, wind, rain pouring down, and power went out.
Severe thunderstorms have led to a ground stoppage here at LaGuardia and several other airports around New York. That's going to impact all these people who are taking off, plus all the planes that are flying in. And this is a big enough hub that's going to have a ripple effect nationwide. The FAA says this is the busiest Memorial Day for air travel in nearly 15 years, with today being the busiest day of the entire stretch. More than 53,000 flights expected to take off. The FAA telling GMA it's all hands on deck for their 45,000 employees.
We're not anticipating delays from staffing, but the weather is out of our control.
And the weather has been at times out of control. Overnight, an EF2 tornado with 120-mile-an-hour winds tearing through Temple, Texas, north of Austin, and in Greenfield, Iowa, where we now know the tornado that killed 4 people and injured dozens was an EF4, which winds up to 185 miles an hour. They're now racing to clean up those obliterated neighborhoods with more severe weather bearing down again tonight. And David, the TSA says it's already been so busy this month. They've had 4 days that rank in their top 10 busiest days ever. And this Memorial Day weekend is supposed to kickstart what could be the busiest summer travel season ever. Of course, as we have seen today, the weather is going to be a major factor. David,
we can see it in the skyline right behind you. Trevor Ault tonight, thank you. Let's get right to Chief Meteorologist Ginger Z, tracking it all as always. Hey, Ginger.
Hi, David. You know, our tornado count to date is well above average. I'm sure that's no surprise. More than 700 tornadoes, and we're about to get more going through this holiday weekend. Just got a brand new tornado watch that includes Elk City, Oklahoma, all the way down to San Angelo. That goes until 11. There are other pockets of severe thunderstorms. We could easily see gusts above 70 with this line that's going to develop in Nebraska. I want to time this out for you because it's going to be a long night ahead and a long Memorial Day weekend. So everybody highlighted there tonight, watch for this because we're blowing through Nebraska into even western Iowa. And then it all starts to train towards Chicago, Milwaukee, Madison, Little Rock, all the way back through Dallas and Waco still tomorrow. So that's your Friday threat. But then Saturday and Sunday, we start to hike the tornado threat a little bit. That hazard becomes bigger for parts of Oklahoma and Kansas, and then centered on Paducah on Sunday. Lots of cookouts, David. I hope everybody has 2 ways of getting warnings.
Yeah, everyone, just be careful out there this holiday weekend, and Ginger, we sure do appreciate it. Thank you. We turn next tonight to this new video just released by police in Louisville after that confrontation between the world's #1 golfer, Scotty Scheffler, and a police officer directing traffic around a deadly accident there. Here's ABC's Steve Osensani.
In street camera video that Louisville police are sharing tonight, there are large buses blocking the view, so it's impossible to see what happened before this car pulls up to the entrance at the PGA Championships. But attorneys for Scotty Scheffler say that the pictures help prove that the champion golfer behind the wheel is innocent.
My situation will get handled. It was just it was a chaotic situation and a big misunderstanding.
What you do see is Scheffler pulling up to the entrance with police detective Brian Gillis running after him. There was a fatal accident on the road, and the golfer was trying to make it through traffic for an early start. People are now asking questions about the detective's police report, where he says Scheffler refused to comply with his directions and dragged him with his car so badly that parts of his uniform were damaged beyond repair. None of that is seen in either of the 2 videos police are releasing that show them arresting the golfer and walking him in handcuffs without incident.
He's going to jail, and it ain't nothing you can do about it.
Police today announced that they're disciplining Detective Gillis for not having turned on his body camera, which would have answered many questions.
We understand the seriousness of the failure to capture this interaction, which is why our officer has received corrective action for this policy violation.
But police say they still aren't dropping the charges against the golfer. He's still facing possible jail time for felony assault, reckless driving, and other charges.
Everything that is out there supports exactly what Scotty has said from the start. Scotty Scheffler didn't do anything wrong. We're not interested in settling the case. We will either try it or it'll be dismissed.
Scheffler was playing at a tournament in Texas today. His people say that even witnesses on the road say that he was treated unfairly. For now, he still has a court appearance on June 3rd, where he's expected to plead not guilty.
David, Steve Osensani reporting in tonight. Thank you, Steve. We turn now to the major new headline involving women and abortion rights in this country. Tonight, the Louisiana legislature has passed a first-of-its-kind bill classifying 2 abortion pills as dangerous controlled substances. Possessing the drugs without a prescription could lead to jail time. Here's Rachel Scott.
Tonight, Louisiana poised to become the first state in the nation to classify 2 abortion pills as dangerous controlled substances. The state legislator now sending the bill to the Republican governor, who's expected to sign it into law.
29 yeas and 7 nays, and the bill has been concurred in.
Abortion is already banned in Louisiana, but this bill would make even possessing the abortion pills without a prescription punishable by jail time and hefty fines. It's designed to crack down on their illegal distribution.
These pills can be used for dangerous and harmful acts.
Drugs designated as dangerous controlled substances are typically ones with potential for addiction and abuse, not abortion pills.
These medications are used in emergent situations for women all the time. And nobody disagrees with that.
Abortion pills are used in more than half of abortions in the U.S. In Louisiana, doctors will now be required to get special licenses to obtain the drugs.
I worry that there will be some stigma and some taboo if the government is saying this should be controlled.
Tonight, the Biden administration pointing the finger squarely at Donald Trump, who appointed 3 of the Supreme Court justices who overturned Roe v. Wade. Vice President Kamala Harris tweeting, "Absolutely unconscionable. Let's be clear, Donald Trump did this." Louisiana is one of 21 states to ban or severely restrict access to abortion since Roe was overturned. Trump has taken credit for sparking the change.
We broke Roe v. Wade, and we did something that nobody thought was possible. We gave it back to the states, and the states are working very brilliantly.
David, Trump claimed weeks ago that he'd be releasing his position on the abortion pill, whether it should be further restricted, saying that he has strong views on that. But David, tonight we are still waiting on that announcement.
All right, Rachel, while we have you, the other headlines tonight involving the race for president. Senate Democrats launching an investigation into a recent meeting that Donald Trump held with oil executives and whether Trump made any promises to those executives.
Yes, David, sources tell us that former President Donald Trump told those oil executives at Mar-a-Lago that they should donate $1 billion to his campaign because if he were to be reelected, he would step up drilling and roll back a series of environmental protections, many of which were put in place during the Biden administration. Senate Democrats now looking to see whether that amounts to a quid pro quo. David.
Rachel Scott on that as well. Thank you, Rachel. We turn now to the Justice Department filing an antitrust lawsuit to break up the parent company of Ticketmaster, accusing Live Nation and Ticketmaster of monopolizing the concert industry, driving up ticket prices for Americans across this country. You'll remember the Taylor Swift concert tickets, fans so upset. Tonight, the DOJ says Live Nation drives up prices, and the DOJ listing the ways they believe Live Nation does this. Here's our Chief Justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas now.
Tonight, in a major move that could transform the live concert industry, the Department of Justice is suing Live Nation, the owner of Ticketmaster, claiming the company is a monopoly that has crushed competition and driven up ticket prices.
It is time to break up Live Nation Ticketmaster. The American people are ready for it.
In a sweeping lawsuit joined by nearly 30 states, the DOJ accuses the concert giant of maintaining its market dominance through illegal tactics like pressuring artists to use its promotion services, retaliating against venues that work with rivals, and locking concert venues into exclusive ticketing contracts. The AG says Ticketmaster is hammering fans with all sorts of built-in fees.
Ticketing fees, service fees, convenience fees, platinum fees, Pricemaster fees.
Live Nation has been under the microscope since its botched sale of the Taylor Swift Eras Tour, when high fees and website crashes left millions of fans without tickets.
I waited in line for like 6 hours.
Tonight, Live Nation is responding to the lawsuit, saying it is not a monopoly and that its profit margin last year was only 1.4%. Instead, the company blames ticket prices on factors like rising production costs, artist popularity, and online ticket scalping. But Taylor Swift fan Joe Artmagian, who is suing Live Nation over that ticket sale meltdown, hopes the government's lawsuit in the end will mean more protections for concert goers.
We are not here to just hand over our wallets. Right now, Ticketmaster is controlling what the fans are able to do.
The DOJ officials are being extremely aggressive. They say the only way to encourage more competition and to lower consumer costs is to break the company up. David?
Dear Thomas, our thanks to you. Tonight, police in Southern California with a warning about groups allegedly targeting homes with Wi-Fi jamming equipment to knock out home security systems. Authorities breaking up what they're calling burglary tourism. What they found in their cars, hard hats and vests to minimize suspicion as they broke in. Here's ABC's Matt Rivers tonight.
Tonight, the 4 men inside this vehicle under arrest, accused of being a part of an international crime operation, traveling to the U.S. to commit burglaries, camouflaging cameras in plants, and using Wi-Fi signal jammers to target homes. Police in Glendale, north of downtown Los Angeles, stopping the vehicle after seeing it exit a dead-end residential street with its headlights off. Upon searching the car, finding, quote, a video surveillance device with a battery pack charging system camouflaged in leaves to gain a view of residences and know when homeowners would leave. Authorities also locating a construction hard hat and a vest to approach homes with minimal suspicion, and they say they found freshly disturbed dirt in a nearby planter. One of those suspects also apprehended just weeks ago following a high-speed pursuit. Police say during the chase, he discarded a Wi-Fi signal jammer capable of disrupting home security systems. Officials tonight saying those 4 men are Colombian nationals and traveled to the U.S. to engage in what authorities now call burglary tourism. An issue now widespread enough, some police departments setting up specialized task forces.
It's very sophisticated. The methods that they're using we haven't seen before. It's a regional problem, nationwide problem.
And David, here in Los Angeles County, there have been multiple recent reports of more homeowners finding more concealed cameras. Meanwhile, for those 4 suspects, all 4 now facing charges of conspiracy to commit burglary. David?
It's really something. Matt Rivers tonight. Matt, thank you. We are learning more tonight about that horrific stage collapse during a political rally in northern Mexico. The pictures are awful. At least 9 people killed, dozens injured when strong winds knocked down the stage outside Monterey. A large video screen collapsing. A child is among the dead tonight. Back here in the U.S. to the economy, a tough day for the stock market amid concerns over interest rates. The Dow suffering its worst loss of the year, dropping 605 points, closing at 39,065, just days after surpassing the 40,000 mark for the first time. When we come back here tonight, the new hurricane forecast is out this evening. NOAA issuing its highest ever early forecast and what this shows tonight. Also, the new study here, young women, breast cancer, and future pregnancy, and what Celine Dion has revealed tonight. Tonight, here the new hurricane forecast. NOAA issuing its highest ever early forecast for the upcoming season, calling it, quote, extraordinary. 17 to 25 named storms. The average is 14. 8 to 13 of those expected to be hurricanes, 4 to 7 of them major. Scientists say the warming ocean temperatures from climate change likely fueling more powerful storms. Tonight, new hope for women who have had breast cancer who want to have a child. According to a preliminary study, 3/4 of women 40 and younger with non-metastatic breast cancer who wanted children were able to become pregnant. About 2/3 had a baby. Scientists say fertility preservation, such as egg freezing, nearly tripled the odds of having a baby. When we come back here tonight, Celine Dion and what she's sharing. And your first look tonight, the Beach Boys, 60 years later, returning to a familiar spot. To the index of Celine Dion tonight, opening up about her personal battle with the debilitating illness, stiff person syndrome. In her new documentary, I Am Celine Dion, the singer says her hope to get back to performing is actually what keeps her going.
I've been diagnosed with a very rare neurological disorder, and I wasn't ready to say anything before. But I'm ready now.
Sounds incredible. The documentary comes out in June. When we come back here tonight, your first look at the Beach Boys, the place they revisit 6 decades later. Finally tonight here, the unofficial start of summer is just about here, and so are the Beach Boys, the new documentary. Tonight, the extraordinary new documentary.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beach Boys.
Beach Boys, 6 decades, 100 million records sold, dozens of top 40 hits. There's Good Vibrations. And Kokomo. Tonight, the new documentary about to be released from our parent company, Disney+.
Try it one more time from the top.
Their story from garage band to superstardom.
3 brothers, Brian, Dennis, and Carl. A cousin, Mike Love, and our good friend El Jardine. That's family to me.
With new interviews from band members, here's Mike Love.
There's definitely been ups and downs. We've probably been counted out half a dozen times.
With never before seen footage.
We used to sing 3-part harmony in the backseat of the car, and that's a birth of 3 brothers singing together. We've known each other for a really long time, and there really is a great deal of fellowship in the group, and we've been through an awful lot.
Chronicling the band's enduring legacy and iconic sound.
The Beach Boys just represented some sort of fantasy. They were participating in the creation of the California dream.
Man, they made me want to go to where they had cars and girls in bikinis.
In the documentary, the incredible moment. For the first time in more than 60 years, the Beach Boys reuniting where it all started. Going back to the original spot where their first album cover was photographed. The director.
We got the surfboard, the original surfboard from that original shoot back in 1963. It's here. The Beach Boys sound is the sound of joy. So I thought it would be sort of poetic with the Beach Boys getting together where it all started. The whole day was so joyful and memorable. It was really like a family reunion.
Tonight, the Beach Boys, the sounds of summer, enduring 6 decades later.
The fact that it was a family, that's where the success came from.
It really looks incredible. The Beach Boys streaming exclusively on Disney+. That starts tomorrow. Great way to kick off summer unofficially. I'm David Muir. Have a good evening. Good night.
Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.
Tonight, the severe storms on the move after days of tornado strikes in the central U.S. and a deadly stage collapse in Mexico. The new video just in. The collapse as it happens. The powerful winds tearing down that stage at a campaign rally. The crowd scrambling for safety. At least 9 killed, more than 120 injured. The same system producing a tornado in Texas. Homes destroyed, a hotel ripped apart. New images out of Iowa. A woman rescued from the rubble after a tornado destroyed her town. And the new threat we're tracking tonight. And just out, the new forecast for the Atlantic hurricane season. NOAA warning it's never seen one like this before. The new clashes on campus. Pro-Palestinian protesters at UCLA climbing onto rooftops, occupying a building, police moving into their camp while the school's president is away testifying on Capitol Hill. Email scam, crooks tapping right into your bank account. Chances are you've already been targeted. And right after one of the hardest moments of his life, the high school valedictorian's inspiring speech, bringing his classmates to tears.
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
On this Thursday night, Ticketmaster and Live Nation accused of suffocating the competition.
The Justice Department filed this lawsuit on behalf of fans.
The mission to break up what's being called an illegal monopoly. A warning to Atlantic Canadians about hurricanes.
This season is looking to be an extraordinary one.
The worries about insurance. Terrifying moments in Mexico. What caused this deadly stage collapse? And jumping on the Oilers bandwagon.
I am a huge Nets fan, but at this point, we're rallying behind the Canadian team.
Is Edmonton now Canada's team?
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. If you've ever bought a ticket to an event or a concert, you have used Ticketmaster. Its parent company, Live Nation, dominates the market when it comes to concert promotion, tickets, and venues. And now the U.S. Justice Department says Live Nation is too big.
That Live Nation has illegally monopolized markets across the live concert industry in the United States for far too long. It is time to break it up.
The American Attorney General and a number of states have launched a lawsuit accusing Live Nation of illegally suppressing competition, which has driven up ticket prices and led to poor customer service. Eric Sorensen has our top story on a legal battle that could reshape the multi-billion-dollar live entertainment industry.
When millions of people could not buy Taylor Swift Eras Tour tickets 2 years ago, public anger coalesced around Ticketmaster and its dominance in ticket sales. Ask Swifties like Halifax's Elizabeth O'Hanley about the prices she ultimately faced.
They're $3,600, so unless you're willing to pay that much, you're just not going to get a ticket.
Now, the U.S. Justice Department and most U.S. states are suing the parent company, Live Nation.
Live Nation relies on unlawful, anti-competitive conduct to exercise its monopolistic control over the live events industry in the United States.
Washington says Live Nation Ticketmaster controls 80% of primary ticketing at major U.S. concert venues, manages more than 400 artists, and controls the majority of large concert venues and promotions in the U.S. And then there is Ticketmaster's additional fees.
Ticketing fees, service fees, convenience fees.
And the list just went on and on.
Per order fees, handling fees.
It is a climb down for the U.S. government, which allowed Live Nation to merge with Ticketmaster in 2010. Critics say the government has no choice but to bring more competition into the live concert industry.
The engine of lower prices is competition. Competition is something that's been absent in this area for decades now. Really, the only way to resolve it is to break up the company.
Ticketmaster learned valuable lessons from this on sale.
Live Nation's president told a congressional hearing last year that bots and scalpers were responsible for high ticket prices. In a statement, Live Nation says this lawsuit won't reduce ticket prices or service fees and distracts from real solutions that would decrease prices and protect fans. What could it mean in Canada?
We always say more competition is more choices for Canadians, so obviously we're going to be looking at what has been announced in the United States.
Any investigation in this country would come from the Competition Bureau, which reached a settlement with Live Nation over extra fees in 2018.
They are most likely watching very carefully what the Americans are doing, and then they would have to decide whether they think that they would like to investigate it.
The case follows years of backlash from concert goers. It could be many more years before it's settled. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
There is a dire warning tonight about the Atlantic hurricane season, which is about to hit. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration in the U.S. forecasts not only more hurricanes than ever, but says they will be unusually intense, both along the U.S. and Canadian Atlantic coast. Jackson Prosco takes us through what's predicted and how those with property in storm-prone areas may pay a price in more ways than one.
Hurricane Otis seemed to come out of nowhere, decimating Acapulco after rapidly intensifying from a Category 1 to a Category 5 in a single day. That nightmare scenario could happen again and again this year.
This season is looking to be an extraordinary one in a number of ways.
Never have American forecasters been so certain of a violent hurricane season, calling for 8 to 13 hurricanes with 4 to 7 major storms of Category 3 or higher, all fueled by record warm ocean temperatures in the Atlantic.
They are equivalent to what we would normally see during August, and they are dramatically warmer than in 2005.
2005 was the year that brought Katrina, which killed over 1,800 people and caused upwards of $125 billion in damage. Since then, climate change has supercharged the ingredients for hurricanes.
The most intense hurricanes will become more intense. That was a projection of the last IPCC report. At the same time, the rainfall associated with hurricanes is also projected to become more intense.
Canada's Hurricane Centre warned storms could also be stronger as they make their way north, like 2022's Hurricane Fiona, the costliest weather event in Atlantic Canadian history. The risks haven't stopped people from flocking to the coast. Places like Florida have witnessed a population boom in the last decade, even as some home insurance providers pull out entirely.
So some insurers are cutting back, and that's making it challenging for some homeowners to find coverage in these high-risk states.
That will all but certainly raise the costs of the next major hurricane to make landfall, making the dire forecast a wake-up call about our vulnerability to more frequent and more extreme storms. Jackson Prosco, Global News, Washington.
The president of France says he will not force through controversial electoral reforms that have sparked deadly riots in the French Pacific territory of New Caledonia. Emmanuel Macron flew to the main island to deliver his message in person, hoping it will restore calm. Mike Armstrong reports.
After 24 hours in the air, traveling from France to New Caledonia in the South Pacific, one of the first things the French president did was take to the air again. Emmanuel Macron flew over some of the areas hit by riots and roadblocks. He then promised that within days, peace would be restored.
Chaque quartier, chaque rond-point, chaque barrage.
Macron says police will go street by street, roadblock by roadblock, and reopen every neighborhood. The deadly riots that have gripped New Caledonia for 11 days have left hundreds of people injured and at least 6 dead. Major thoroughfares are still closed, blocked by protesters. While part of Macron's message Thursday was about toughness, he's moved in more than 1,300 extra police officers and soldiers, as well as extra judges. More than 260 people have been arrested. But the other side of Macron's visit is one of diplomacy. He spent much of the day meeting with political leaders from both sides of the conflict with, he said, a spirit of openness. Macron now says he will delay the controversial voting reforms adopted last week in Paris. They would expand the electoral rolls in New Caledonia, making anyone who's lived in the territory territory for at least 10 years eligible to vote. That change is strongly opposed by indigenous groups who say it would dilute their political power. The Kanak people make up just over 40% of New Caledonia's population.
The government and the ministers, they bring back the war here in New Caledonia, the civil war here.
Now, Macron's trip is meant to quell tensions, but he's also firmly admitting that in the coming days there will be massive police operations. He says the state of emergency won't be lifted until the barricades are moved out, and the extra police may be sticking around long after that. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv, was pounded by Russian missiles today. At least 7 people were killed. The attack destroyed a large printing facility which publishes about 1/3 of Ukraine's books. Troops are struggling to hold off Russian soldiers fighting an intense cross-border offensive. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says the attack shows Russia is taking advantage of Ukraine's lack of air defenses, and he begged world leaders to be more decisive with military support. The U.S. is expected to announce another $275 million in ammunition and artillery for Ukraine tomorrow. It will be the 4th installment of military aid since Congress passed the long-delayed foreign defense bill last month. Here in Canada, the federal government is planning an important change to how second-generation children born abroad to Canadian citizens gain citizenship. Former Conservative Prime Minister Stephen Harper's government changed the law so that Canadian parents who were born abroad could not pass down their citizenship unless their child was born in Canada. Mackenzie Gray explains what's changing and its potential impact.
A new move from Ottawa to bring home so-called lost Canadians.
There's no doubt that Canadian citizenship is highly valued and recognized around the world. We want a citizenship to be fair, accessible, with clear and transparent rules.
Currently, if someone is born to a Canadian outside the country, they couldn't pass on their Canadian passport to their child if that child was also born abroad. With the change, citizenship could be passed along, as long as their parents spent a total of 3 years in Canada before their kid was born or adopted.
Love you guys.
That will allow the kids of Boston resident Catherine Burton to become Canadian.
They want to come here, they want to learn language, they want to go to school here, they want to do so many things here because this is what they consider home.
The Liberals forced to make the modification after an Ontario Superior Court ruled the law limiting citizenship was unconstitutional.
It will be the first time that the Citizenship Act is actually charter compliant.
The old rules imposed in 2009 by the then Conservative government after they spent $94 million repatriating around 14,000 Canadian citizens during the war in Lebanon. Evacuees many in the Harper government viewed as Canadians of convenience. A part of an estimated group of over 4 million Canadian citizens living outside the country who can access Canadian social services like healthcare and reduced university tuition while paying little to no taxes.
We don't have the same system as in the US where if you're an American citizen, regardless of where you live, you have to fill your income tax report every year.
The immigration minister was unable to say how many new Canadians there would be from these changes, but Donna, a report released from the Senate estimated 2 million Canadians living abroad obtained their citizenship by descent.
Okay, Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa, thanks. The University of Toronto has made a conditional offer to pro-Palestinian demonstrators camped out there for about 3 weeks. The president says the deal hinges on students tearing down the unauthorized encampment.
Given the duration of the encampment and the growing strain on our community, it's time to bring this encampment to an end. The students have been given 24 hours to consider this offer.
He says the offer addresses all the protesters' demands on divestment, disclosure of investments, and academic ties. Protesters have demanded it sever financial ties with the Israeli government and call for a ceasefire in Gaza. London Drugs confirmed today what was feared. Files stolen by cyber criminals last month have been leaked onto the dark web. Cyber criminals breached company computers in a ransomware attack. London Drugs closed all its stores in Western Canada at one point. A group called Lockbit claimed responsibility and threatened to release stolen data unless London Drugs paid $25 million. The company says it's unwilling and unable to pay. Customer and patient databases, it says, were not affected. Employees may have been, and they're getting free credit monitoring services and identity theft protection. A severe storm hits an election rally. Coming up, the deadly collapse in Mexico.
Yango.
This terrifying scene happened at an election rally in Mexico last night. A huge gust of wind caused the stage to collapse. 9 people were killed, including a child. More than 100 others were injured. A presidential candidate was on stage at the time. He was not hurt, but he's now suspended all his campaign events. There were warnings about a severe thunderstorm, strong winds, hail, and the possibility of tornadoes at the time. In Mexico's south, howler monkeys are dying by the dozens in an intense heat wave. A conservation group says more than 130 howler monkeys have been found dead in recent weeks. Many simply fell from trees as temperatures surpassed 45 degrees Celsius. Volunteers and veterinarians are trying to help monkeys suffering from dehydration, bringing bottles of water, fruit, and even IV drips. Multiple howler monkey species in Mexico are already considered vulnerable or endangered as human activity threatens their populations. Taiwan has put missile, naval, and land units on alert because of full-scale Chinese military drills underway around the island nation. That's Taiwan's Coast Guard telling a Chinese vessel to leave, saying it severely undermines the peace and stability of Taiwan Strait. China calls the military exercises strong punishment for the self-ruled nation's so-called separatist acts. In his inauguration speech on Monday, Taiwan's new president called on China to accept the existence of its democracy. Growing the game ahead, the excitement for Canada's first WNBA team. New video was released today, nearly a week after the arrest of pro golfer Scottie Scheffler outside the PGA Championship. Louisville police released footage of the arrest from 2 different cameras. A security camera and a police dash cam provide new angles, but the altercation between Scheffler and the arresting officer is largely obscured. There's no police body cam footage because the officer did not turn on his device.
We understand the seriousness of the failure to capture this interaction, which is why our officer has received corrective action for this policy violation.
Scheffler was arrested last Friday after he allegedly failed to follow police orders while arriving at the PGA Championship. A pedestrian had been killed and police had stopped traffic. Scheffler is facing several charges, including second-degree assault of a police officer. It is official. The WNBA is coming to Canada. The Women's Professional Basketball League confirmed today its latest franchise will be in Toronto. That team will hit the court in 2026. And as Mike Drolet reports, basketball fans in 3 Canadian cities will get a chance to watch in person.
Toronto, welcome to the W.
It's somewhat ironic the shortest person on the stage has been a giant when it comes to basketball in Canada. Larry Tannenbaum was instrumental in bringing the NBA to Toronto, and now, almost 30 years later, he's doing the same with the WNBA.
Many say women's sports is having a moment. I disagree. Women's sports has arrived. It is a movement. The world is finally taking notice of something that's been there all along.
It wasn't always so. Tammy Sutton-Brown played 12 years in the W and remembers the early 2000s when the league struggled to get exposure and the players barely made ends meet.
The salaries, can we just start there? The salaries are a lot different. I think they're making probably 2, 3, 4 times what we made back in our days.
Today, one of the hottest and most marketable athletes on the planet, Caitlin Clark, is set to begin her WNBA career as the league celebrates attendance, broadcast, and fan engagement records.
When I joined the league, I think we had 80 games of our over 200 on national platforms. Last year, we had 205 of our 240 games on national platforms. If you build it, they will come.
Absolutely, yes.
I thought it was fake news, but we here, man, we here.
There's certainly a buzz around women's sports that we haven't seen before. That in turn is changing the way sports marketing experts think.
I credit them for saying this is not only the right thing to do, but it's a business decision, and the time is now and perhaps overdue to bring women's sport in this country.
The team's home base will be in Toronto, but they'll also play in Vancouver and Montreal. And yes, they'll be accepting input on the team name and colors from the public. But with first tip-off not until 2026, they have time to enjoy this historic day.
Do hereby proclaim May 23rd, 2024 as WNBA Day in the city of Toronto.
Mike Drolet, Global News, Toronto.
Canadian superstar Celine Dion has a new documentary coming out about her life. It's said to be a raw and honest look at the struggles she's faced dealing with a life-altering illness. Here's a clip from the trailer.
I'm working hard every day, but I have to admit, it's been a struggle. I miss it so much. The people, I miss them.
In 2022, Dion was diagnosed with stiff person syndrome, a rare neurological disorder. It causes muscle rigidity and painful spasms that progress over time. She canceled her world tour a year ago. Dion calls the film a love letter to her fans and hints at a return. It will stream on Prime Video at the end of June. Next, Canada's last hockey team standing. Are you ready to join the Oilers bandwagon? The puck dropped today for Game 1 of the NHL's Western Conference Final. The Edmonton Oilers are in Texas taking on the Dallas Stars and are the last Canadian team with a chance at the Stanley Cup. I've talked to a few Canucks, Jets, and Leafs fans who say, no way, no chance, they are not going to cheer for the Oilers. So are the Oilers really Canada's team? Heather Yorks West looks at the state of the playoff bandwagon from Calgary.
It's dinosaur.
You have to go back to 1993. The year dinosaurs ruled the box office. And Whitney Houston topped the charts to find the last time Lord Stanley's Cup was raised by a Canadian team.
There's a growing number of Canadian hockey fans, myself included, that haven't been alive to see a Canadian team lift the Stanley Cup.
But maybe 2024 is Canada's year. The Edmonton Oilers keeping hope alive.
Yeah, I mean, McDavid and the boys are making a run for it. It's awesome.
The Oil has its hometown support, but its bandwagon is growing with every round. Even Vancouver fans are jumping on.
I am a huge Canucks fan, but at this point, we're rallying behind the Canadian team.
For sure, yeah. Any Canadian team. Just want to bring the cup back to Canada.
In Calgary, the heart of enemy territory, we see a lot of orange and blue.
We've been blessed. We've been a full house every single night for the Oilers games. It's our sport, so it's very important. Canadians want to see a Canadian team get through.
Among the Oilers squad, 16 out of 20 players call this country home. But before Edmonton can again be the city of champions and make Canada proud, it'll need to get past Dallas, and round 3 will be a tough fight.
A lot of it is rest versus rust. The Oilers are coming off of that intense 7th game against Vancouver, so they might be feeling a little bit beat up after that, where Dallas has been off for almost a week after downing Colorado in 6.
Oilers fans still have a long way to go.
But the Flames, well, they didn't even make the playoffs. And of the 4 teams left in the hunt for Stanley, only 1 Canadian team remains. So for this year, and this year only, go Oilers go. Donna?
You did it. Heather Yorks West in Calgary, thanks. That is Global National for this Thursday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Year Canada is this old family farm in Ajax, Ontario. Thanks for watching. For our Nasser will be at the anchor desk tomorrow, and I'll see you again in a little bit. Bye-bye.
Tonight, fresh off his visit to the South Bronx, Donald Trump's looking to change that.
Thank you, everybody. What a crowd. This is something. You know, we wanted to keep it small because who knew? This is like a love fest. Love fest. It's a love fest. We love you. Thank you, Donald.
Here's the native New Yorker feeling right at home.
I was sort of like a hot guy. I was hot as a pistol. I think I was hotter than I am now when I became president. The costs have gone up so much. Bacon has gone. I don't eat bacon anymore. It's too expensive. When he's finished with his speech, he can never find the stairs. He can never find the stairs. And when he does, it's not a pretty picture either. Thank goodness for Secret Service. They come up and they guide him off. She wrapped him up all cozy in a comforter of silk and laid him by the fireside with some honey and some milk. She hurried home from work that night, and soon as she arrived, she found the pretty snake she'd taken in had been revived. But instead of saying thank you, ma'am, the snake gave her a vicious bite.
This morning, supporters waited in line in the rain to hear the former president, a borough that voted 90% for Biden in 2020, which today became a bit more red. After 4 years, you could feel the buyer's remorse. Johnny was there as our witness.
Why are you here today?
To support Donald Trump. I am here for Trump.
To support Donald Trump. To put America first. What do you like about Donald Trump?
Everything. He's from Queens, and he speaks our language.
I like Trump because he keep it real. He don't got no filter. He's for the people.
He speaks money, and this is what the country needs. We need money, not inflation. We need money.
Everything was under control. We had low inflation. We had gas under $1.80. What issues are people in the Bronx facing? Economic stress. They're facing an illegal invasion.
In the Bronx right now, it's definitely crime.
Prices is extreme. We care about the housing. We care about the crime. How has Joe Biden addressed those issues?
He hasn't.
He hasn't addressed them. He wants to make them worse. Nothing. He's just been talking a lot. The Biden name in the Bronx sounds like mass incarceration. What has Joe Biden done for the minority community?
He's done nothing but say, you ain't black.
Incarcerated us. Not a thing.
Absolutely nothing.
I really could not tell you what he's done. Joe Biden says, if you don't support him, you ain't black. Are you black? Hey, Joe, guess what?
Oh, I'm absolutely black. And I support Trump.
I don't know why you would say that. He's not even black.
I guess I said I ain't black, because I'm not voting for him.
Trump is more black than him. Trump is black as I am. You heard?
Love was in the air. Donald Trump speaking for over an hour, addressing the economy, the border, foreign policy, and, of course, Joe Biden.
Our subways are squalid and unsafe. The ceiling tiles are falling down, and they look worse than a third world country. The medians of our highways are crumbling. Our sidewalks are littered with garbage, bottles, and trash. Biden is not getting the job done for the Bronx. The minute crooked Joe Biden shuffles out the door, I will rapidly rebuild the greatest economy in the history of the world. Look, we had the greatest economy in history. In Brooklyn, American students at James Madison High School were recently told they had to stay at home from school so their classrooms could be turned into housing for thousands of migrants. Very simply, Joe Biden puts illegal aliens first. I put America first. I put America first.
Not everybody was happy that Trump was on their turf. Reverend Al Sharpton, happy DEI Thursday, by the way, was ready for a street fight.
Donald Trump is a street fighter. You do not come into the ring with him with gloves, looking for a referee to stop every 3 minutes rest. No, this is a street fight. You come in with a broke bottle and an ash can because it's going to be that kind of battle.
Fighting dirty. Democrats don't know any other way. Forget about winning hearts and minds. They'd rather throw you in jail and call you racist. Here's Joe Biden's new ad. Watch.
Of course I hate these people. Donald Trump disrespecting black folk is nothing new. He was sued for refusing to rent his apartments to black families and called for the execution of 5 innocent black and brown teenagers.
And it's more than anger, it's hatred.
It's why Trump stood with violent white supremacists, warned of a bloodbath if he loses the next election. And if he's president again, vowed to be a dictator who wants revenge on his enemies. Now, who do you think that is?
Donald Trump's been running his mouth his whole life, nonstop. And they can't find a single thing he said that's racist. They have to go back to the 80s to find Central Park 5. Here's Trump in the 80s, by the way. Black America wanted to be Trump before Black America had even heard the name Joe Biden. Politics has always been personal. Personality is persuasive, but nothing persuades like results. Traditional Democrat constituencies, young black Hispanic voters, are not better off than they were 4 years ago and are coming around to a man who represents a movement they were told not to trust. But every bone in their body tells them that they can't trust the party bosses. Sick of their corny commands and broken promises, people in the Bronx and all over America are beginning to think for themselves, independently, outside of a system that's trapped and scolded them for opening their mouths and eyes. AOC's brain can't even grasp anything other than left-right. Watch her stammer and lie. Humiliated, Trump gets bigger crowds in her borough than she does.
New York City's blue, Brooklyn is blue, Queens is blue, the Bronx is blue, and he's got nowhere to go, so he's decided to come to the South Bronx. He's broke, he needs to pay these legal funds, and busing people in order to get those donations so that he can funnel them to his legal fees is kind of his business right now.
Trump doesn't have to be in court for a week. He doesn't have to be in the Bronx. He wants to. Trump's not going to the Bronx because he's broke. He's going to the Bronx because the Bronx is broke, thanks to Bidenomics and AOC. Johnny's been there since 2. Hasn't seen a single bus pull up.
Where are you from?
The Bronx, actually.
I'm originally from the Bronx and from New York.
I'm from the Bronx.
Right here in the Bronx, New York. This is home, right here. AOC says if you're not a Democrat, you don't belong here in the Bronx. Right. What do you say?
I disagree with that.
I don't think she should be here in the Bronx. I actually don't know any Democrats living in the Bronx.
Look, AOC, look at the tremendous support for Mr. Donald J. Trump. You need to tell her and she need to stay out the Bronx because look at all the people around. Everybody say for Trump. I am a Democrat, and I belong here. And who you vote for? Donald J. Trump. What has AOC done for the Bronx?
She's done nothing for the Bronx. Nothing. Nothing's changed. Nothing's gotten any better.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Let her come to the Bronx and let her come among us people that struggle. She doesn't even know what struggle is.
All these people want is to be heard. And when you realize that, you understand how easy a politician's job is. Even easier than mine. You listen to the voters and you deliver the goods. That's it. You don't ignore them and deliver for yourself. AI would do a better job in Washington than Democrats. The Bronx has never felt more abandoned.
We have so many Americans doing so bad in this country because we have people in this country believe that they have the right to strip us of our humanity, strip us of everything that we own, strip us of our right to raise our children the way we want to raise our children. We have to stand up against them. It's not about just supporting Trump, it's supporting your rights. It's supporting this country's rights. It's supporting our children. All of you people at home that's scared to come out and say you support Donald Trump, we get you. We understand. You might lose your job. You might lose, but vote for it anyway. If you continue to support the Democratic Party, which is anti-black, you're a damn fool.
The forgotten men and women of this country, the normies, and blue-collar Democrats who've been slighted for decades are all joining together as a part of a growing movement from the ground up. The movement reaches from the heartland to the street corner. It's everywhere. And the Bronx is just the beginning. Trump's campaigning on Biden's side of the field now. Look for more rallies in swing state blue cities like Philly, Milwaukee, Detroit, Atlanta, Las Vegas. We're fundamentally altering the American political coalition and returning power to the people. Some would say we're saving democracy.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to...
This news is funded by viewers like you. Please support our work at democracynow.org/give. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Israel's intensifying its ground and aerial attacks on the southern Gaza city of Rafah, where until recently more than 1.4 million Palestinians had sought refuge. According to the United Nations, over 800,000 Palestinians have fled Rafah, despite having no safe place to go. In Gaza City, Israel bombed a mosque and a school housing displaced Palestinians. Al Jazeera reports the bombing killed 10 people, including 5 children. Dozens were wounded. The overall death toll in Gaza has now topped 35,700. Israel's also continuing to target medical facilities in Gaza. Israeli forces have stormed Al-Adha Hospital and the Jabalia refugee camp, forcing medical staff to abandon the hospital. The World Health Organization has issued an urgent appeal for Israel to protect the hospital's medical staff and patients. On Tuesday, Israeli missiles struck the emergency department at Kamel Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza. Dr. Hassam Abu Safia described the attack.
What happened a short while ago, and we never imagined that one day we would be targeted directly. The emergency department was targeted by more than 3 missiles. The first missile, when it hit the entrance of the emergency department. We tried to enter, and then a second missile hit, and then the third, and the building nearby was hit. We do not know what their fate is.
On Capitol Hill, Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson's moving ahead with a plan to invite Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to address a joint session of Congress. Johnson's urging Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer to sign on to the invitation, despite strong pushback from many Democrats. This comes just days after the chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court announced he's seeking an arrest warrant for Netanyahu for war crimes in Gaza. Meanwhile, Israel and the U.S. are criticizing a move by Ireland, Norway, and Spain to recognize Palestine as an independent state May 28th, bringing the total number of countries recognizing Palestine to 146. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan spoke Wednesday.
President Biden, as I just said, has been on the record supporting a two-state solution. He has been equally emphatic on the record that two-state solution should be brought about through direct negotiations through the parties, not through unilateral recognition.
In Colombia, President Gustavo Petro has ordered the opening of a Colombian embassy in the Palestinian city of Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. This comes weeks after Petro broke diplomatic relations with Israel after he accused Israel of committing genocide in Gaza. This is Colombia's Foreign Minister, Luis Gilberto Murillo.
So we are sure that more and more countries are going to recognize Palestine, and this is nothing against Israel or the people of Israel or Jewish people. The United Nations agreed, in the context of the Oslo Accords, that a two-state solution should be created. And so if you need 2 states, then obviously that requires Palestine to be recognized as a state.
Back in the U.S., 2 progressive Democrats lost their primary races in Oregon Tuesday after they were vastly outspent by more right-leaning candidates. Sushila Jayapal, the older sister of Congressional Progressive Caucus Chair Pramila Jayapal, lost to Maxine Dexter, who received around 30 times more money than Jayapal, including over $2 million from the pro-Israel AIPAC-affiliated 314 Action Fund. Sushila Jayapal called for urgent campaign finance reform after the vote. Elsewhere in Oregon, progressive candidate Jamie McLeod Skinner was defeated by Janelle Bynum, who received nearly $500,000 from 314 Action Fund. China's launched 2 days of military drills around Taiwan just days after the self-governing territory inaugurated its new president. Chinese state media said the military exercises will, quote, serve as a strong punishment for the separatist acts of Taiwan independence forces, unquote. Taiwanese President William Lai Ching-te responded to the news by saying he will strengthen Taiwan's army and, quote, continue to defend the values of democracy, protecting regional peace and stability, unquote. In the United Kingdom, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak called a surprise snap election for July 4th, taking a major gamble as he seeks re-election, even as his Conservative Party is trailing far behind the opposition Labour Party in the polls. Conservatives have been in power in Britain since 2010. In environmental news, an international maritime tribunal issued a ruling that says greenhouse gases are pollutants that can cause irreversible harm to the marine environment, and governments must, quote, adopt laws and regulations to prevent, reduce, and control them. Though the ruling's non-binding, small island nations on the front lines of the climate crisis hailed it as a groundbreaking victory, and it's likely to lead to more cases against the largest polluters. The decision affects 165 countries that ratified the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea. The United States is not one of them. In Florida, a federal judge temporarily blocked part of a new law that would make it a felony to transport undocumented migrants into the state. The measure was pushed as part of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' attacks on immigrants. Meanwhile, in Arizona, the state Senate advanced a Republican-led ballot measure for the November election, which would allow local and state agencies to detain undocumented people crossing the southern border and allow state judges to order their removal from the U.S. Arizona Democrats and immigrant justice advocates have condemned the measure for further criminalizing migrants. This is Jose Patino of the group Aliento.
Myself, my dad was deported when I was 11 years old. I remember to this day how I felt scared in the corner asking for help, and how the people who were supposed to protect us, aka police officers, were the ones who were taking my dad away.
Another flag favored by die-hard Trump supporters was seen on display outside another one of Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito's homes. The New York Times reports an Appeal to Heaven flag, a symbol carried by insurrectionists on January 6, was photographed flying in front of Alito's New Jersey vacation house last summer. The flag, featuring a pine tree, is found in far-right Christian circles. This comes just a week after the New York Times reported Alito flew an upside-down U.S. flag outside his Virginia home January 2021, a symbol used by election deniers. Even before Wednesday's latest revelation, some 50 House Democrats wrote a letter calling on Justice Alito to recuse himself from January 6-related cases, including Trump's claim to presidential immunity in his election subversion cases. An Appeal to Heaven flag also hangs outside the office of House Speaker Mike Johnson. The Senate on Wednesday confirmed President Biden's 201st federal judge nominee. At this point in Trump's presidency, Republicans had secured 196 judges. Democrats hope to exceed Trump's total of 234 judicial confirmations during his term, which would represent about a quarter of the federal judiciary. In Uvalde, Texas, families of the victims of the massacre at Robb Elementary School announced they've settled a lawsuit with the city for $2 million as they launched a lawsuit against 92 officers with the Texas Department of Public Safety, the school district, and individual employees. This is Javier Cazares, father of killed 9-year-old Jackie, speaking at a press conference yesterday.
No amount of money is worth our lives of our children. Justice and accountability has always been my main concern. We've been let down so many times. The time has come to do the right thing.
The news Wednesday came just 2 days ahead of the 2-year anniversary of the Uvalde massacre, which killed 19 children and 2 teachers. 376 law enforcement officers responded to the mass shooting, but it took 77 minutes for anyone to enter the classroom where the gunman was slaughtering children. Earlier this week, the new Uvalde School District police chief resigned. Just a year after taking up the job, his predecessor was fired over the botched response to the shooting. President Biden's canceled another $7.7 billion in student loans for 160,000 borrowers. The funds will benefit those enrolled in certain repayment plans, such as public service loans and income-driven plans. This latest move brings the overall student debt relief issued by the Biden administration to $167 billion after the Supreme Court struck down a more comprehensive plan last year that would have provided relief for some 40 million people. And in related news, a dozen members of the Debt Collective Group were arrested Wednesday after 100 protesters marched from the Education Department to the Capitol demanding Biden fund education, not genocide, unquote. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Democracy Now! Is funded by viewers like...
Tonight, wild weather ahead of Memorial Day.
Everything I heard was that this was going to be an insane weekend to travel.
We're tracking severe storms after the wind from the same weather system leads to a deadly stage collapse in Mexico. And tornadoes in Texas.
I call my daughter and I tell her, I'm gonna die.
The CBS Evening News starts now. More than 30 million people under threat of severe weather tonight from Texas to Maine. Good evening. I'm Nora O'Donnell, and thank you for being with us. Thunderstorms, damaging winds, very large hail, and even tornadoes, all possible as tens of millions of Americans hit the roads and airports. More than 12,000 flights have been delayed and more than 700 canceled over the last 2 days. The FAA says that today is the busiest day for the airlines this holiday weekend, with more than 53,500 flights scheduled at the nation's airports. CBS's Omar Villafranca will start us off tonight with the severe weather that turned deadly across the border in Mexico.
Tonight, Live Nation in the hot seat, accused of an illegal monopoly. The U.S. Justice Department suing.
That conduct is anti-competitive and illegal.
What it means for artists and for fans.
Welcome to the W.
Plus, courting women's basketball. Toronto Nets, a WNBA team.
We're so excited for the girls and women of Canada.
And the medical breakthrough. AI helps make a rare diagnosis.
We're not replacing the doctors, we're helping them with some of these difficulties.
Dress code in Quebec, going to great lengths to wear shorts. And a hero's homecoming.
The emotions are overwhelming. The event is overwhelming.
The unknown soldier returning to Newfoundland and Labrador.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina. Reporting tonight, Todd Vanderhayden.
Good evening. If you've ever been to a concert...
Dave, she's working here. Rudy's having an affair.
Somebody is copying our most expensive designer gowns and doing it extremely well.
I want a career in fashion.
Today, an Australian seeking a medical evacuation for his wife after their turbulent Singapore Airlines flight gets a visit and an apology from the CEO.
That was a really great positive step, and they've just reaffirmed their commitment to us and support.
Victoria Police formally apologises for the force's role in the stolen generations. The French president to put contentious voting changes in New Caledonia on hold after days of deadly violence. And the power of sleep on young minds, the evidence suggesting teenagers who don't get enough are more susceptible to mental illness. Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Ruby Cornish. In breaking news this hour, a huge landslide has struck a remote village in Papua New Guinea. Current estimates put the death toll at more than 100, but villagers say the figure could be much higher than that. It's still unclear whether emergency services have visited the remote area yet. The landslide reportedly hit central PNG at about 3 o'clock this morning. Videos shared on social media show residents scaling huge rocks and pulling bodies from rubble and beneath trees. The husband of an Adelaide woman seriously injured on a turbulent Singapore Airlines flight this week says the carrier is now getting behind efforts to fly her home. Overnight, hospital staff in Bangkok tried to stop Keith Davis criticising Singapore Airlines, whisking him away when he complained the airline's representatives hadn't visited them. His wife, Kerry Jordan, had emergency surgery after being flung about the cabin. She's one of at least 9 Australians still in hospital being treated for spinal and brain injuries. About 60 of the 229 people on board are still receiving treatment. Mr Davis is hopeful they can get her back to Adelaide after finally having contact with Singapore Airlines.
Kerry's not in a great space at all. She's had severe spinal trauma. She had emergency surgery as soon as we were admitted, and it remains that she has no sensation from her waist down, so it's pretty life-changing, yeah. There's quietly confident that more like weeks for her to be fit and stable to fly in terms of the medical stuff. So there's been, coordination has happened now with Singapore Airlines. It's been a bit of a sea change over, yesterday afternoon. They've come on board with, we have a dedicated person here, James, who's our customer care guy. So he's here at the hospital for us, which is fantastic. I met with the CEO from Singapore Airlines yesterday, and that was a really great positive step. And they've just reaffirmed their commitment to us and support whilst we're here at the hospital.
People like Keith Davis, his wife, and others, at least the ball of the process seems to be rolling, and that's a little tiny bit of optimism, I guess, for a situation which is pretty difficult for everybody involved.
Southeast Asia correspondent Bill Birdle, thank you so much for the update. The Victoria Police Commissioner Shane Patton has issued a formal apology for the force's role in removing Aboriginal children from their families and communities. He delivered the apology and acknowledgement to a room full of Stolen Generations survivors and their families gathered in Melbourne.
Victoria Police is deeply committed to a genuine truth-telling process, enabling Victorians to reckon with the causes of injustice and create an opportunity to heal and bring meaningful and positive change. A shared commitment to truth-telling is a critical step towards building a fair relationship between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people in Victoria. As part of that process, it's vital for Victoria Police to face up to and accept responsibility for the widespread harm caused to Aboriginal people by the role police played in forcibly removing children from their families and the deep impact this had on severing their connection to family, community, country, language, culture and identity. I am deeply sorry for the harm which this has caused and the harm which continues to be felt now. During my direct conversations with Stolen Generation survivors, the realisation of the impact on them had particularly moved their siblings, their parents and their extended families. I also acknowledge the impact of the children of those who were removed and generations that come after.
Survivors of the Stolen Generations and community leaders spoke before the Commissioner delivered the apology. They spoke of grief as well as hope for a better future, which they believe will follow.
As a survivor, my passion for seeking justice for the Stolen Generations has spanned for over 20 years. It has been a personal priority of mine and to keep the Stolen Generations at the forefront to ensure that
even having the guts to come and apologise and come here today.
And returning to our breaking news, we can now bring you some pictures of the scene of that deadly landslide in central Papua New Guinea. A village was devastated in that landslide in PNG's Enga province. Current estimates put the death toll at more than 100, but villagers say the figure could be much higher than that. It's still unclear whether emergency services have visited the remote area. The landslide reportedly hit central PNG at 3 o'clock this morning. Videos shared on social media show residents scaling huge rocks and pulling bodies from rubble and beneath trees. We will have more on this story as it comes to hand. In other news, the federal government says its trial of the escaping violence payment will now be made permanent. To be eligible for the $5,000 support, applicants need to have recently experienced intimate partner violence, be over the age of 18, under financial stress, or be planning to change their living arrangements. $1,500 will be paid directly into a bank account, with the rest going to services or stores to help set up a new, safe and secure place to live. It can also be used for security systems, bonds, removals and essential household furniture. But most services helping victim survivors say $5,000 is often nowhere near enough. Lauren Scrivener works with those seeking to escape from gendered violence. She says while the payments are helpful, the window for support needs to be longer.
The women that are accessing this support are overwhelmed. Quite often they miss the window of that 12-week, and if they don't get in, they don't get the support. Having a bigger window for when the funding is available to those leaving violence would be helpful.
Final flight or two will occur in the next couple of days.
We'll leave it there. Foreign Affairs reporter Stephen Jedgetts, thank you. The new president of Taiwan, Lai Ching-te, has promised to defend freedom and democracy after China launched military exercises around the self-governing island. China's People's Liberation Army says the drills are a punishment for Mr. Lai's inauguration. Beijing considers him a dangerous separatist. Mr. Lai says he'll do everything he can to protect Taiwan and safeguard the lives of its people.
I will stand on the front line with all the brothers and sisters from the National Army to defend the national peace together. At this moment, international society is paying attention to democratic Taiwan. And while facing the external challenges and threats, we will continue to defend the values of democracy, protecting regional peace and stability.
The International Court of Justice will tonight decide whether to order a halt to Israel's Rafah offensive in southern Gaza. South Africa made the request to protect the city last week, saying it was necessary to ensure the survival of the Palestinian people. The UN body has no way to enforce the decision, but a ruling against Israel could add to its political isolation after a series of setbacks. Ahead of the ruling, Israel said it would not be deterred from pursuing its war on Hamas militants.
No power on earth will stop Israel from protecting its citizens and going after Hamas in Gaza. We will destroy Hamas.
India's 7-week-long election has been marred by allegations of voter suppression and police intimidation. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Hindu Nationalist Party are seeking a rare third straight term. But members of the ruling PJP have been accused of intimidating Muslim voters and interfering with the election process.
Scores flee in panic as police wield batons, indiscriminately beating those attempting to vote.
I asked the officers what was happening. They accused me of voting on a forged ID. I told them I've been voting every 5 years and this has never happened before.
Seeking the future of more than 1 billion voters. Meghna Bali, ABC News, New Delhi.
Russian missiles have slammed into Ukraine's second largest city and killed at least 7 people. Many more were wounded in the attack on the northeastern city of Kharkiv. Kyiv's army is struggling to hold off a Russian offensive. Ukraine says it needs more air defense systems from Western partners to prevent the barrages. The United States is expected to announce more than $400 million in military aid for Ukraine tomorrow. The Biden administration has pledged to keep weapons flowing. There's growing evidence to suggest that a lack of sleep during a child's developmental period is leaving teenagers vulnerable to the onset of mental illness. A recent Australian study has found poor sleep led to increases in symptoms of generalised anxiety, social anxiety, depression and eating disorders. Some Sydney Year 12 students are learning strategies to better manage their sleep and mental well-being for now and into the future.
My name is David, I'm 17 and I'm from Western Sydney. I don't give myself permission to sleep. I'm like, I need to get this task done or I'm not sleeping, and then I keep working and working and working, but then I get that task done and it's 1 a.m. and I'm like, oh, well, I should have gone to sleep.
I'm not the only person that feels this way, and it's actually easier to correct than what we think.
The current sleep guidelines in Australia are 9 to 11 hours for 5 to 13-year-olds and 8 to 10 hours for 14 to 17-year-olds. Teenagers and families are advised to speak to their GP if they are experiencing difficulties with sleep and mental health. Moving on now, and an Adelaide man has claimed the $150 million Powerball jackpot, becoming Australia's biggest ever lottery winner. The man contacted lottery officials this morning. He acquired the ticket from a drive-through convenience store in Salisbury. In addition to the main prize, there were 9 Division 2 winners, each taking home more than $276,000. A reminder that you can keep up to date at news.abc.net.au and, of course, on ABC iView. Here are the top stories on ABC News this hour. More than 100 people are feared dead in a landslide in a remote village in Papua New Guinea.
By the lives of those who live there.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.
Hello and welcome to our latest edition of Destination Paris, where every week we build up to the start of the Olympic Games. In a few minutes, we'll be travelling to the south of France to discover a sport where a ball travels to up to 300 kilometres per hour. But first, the Olympic Committee has unveiled the podiums for both the Olympic and Paralympic Games. That's the mascots coming up as the athletes also pose in front of one of those 68 podiums that will be used. And they say that the grey of the podium is there to resemble the roofs of the Parisian buildings, on which the athletes will no doubt be wanting to climb as high as possible. Well, meanwhile, over in Germany, 4 canoeists have secured their tickets. Among them is Sideris Tassiadis and Ricardo Funk, who won medals in London and Tokyo. Now, the Olympic Games bring together athletes from over 200 countries. Banyik Ndiaye is a Senegalese judoka. He lives in France and trains there, but travels also back to Senegal. Our team over there has been following his preparations, and in episode 2 of this series here, they caught an insight of his plans to help forge a whole new generation of judo champions.
For Banyik Ndiaye, as for whole generations of Senegalese judokas, it all began here. The National Dojo is a true temple of the sport. The institution welcomes young athletes aged 14 to 17 several times a week.
This is Asia Now.
Good Friday morning. It's 11 a.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 8:30 in New Delhi, and 10 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Teresa Tang. At this hour, China's military launches a second day of, quote, punishment military exercises around Taiwan, days after the inauguration of the island's new president, William Lai. Beijing says the drills test their ability to seize power and control key territories. Israel intensifies its assault on Gaza as troops continue operations in Rafah and Jabalia. Meanwhile, Benjamin Netanyahu's war cabinet has asked negotiators to resume talks with Hamas over a ceasefire and hostage deal. And parts of South Asia are scorching under a prolonged heat wave. Temperatures in Pakistan climbed to as high as 49 degrees Celsius. Schools have been shut early for the summer break there, as well as in the Indian capital. China says its ongoing military exercises around Taiwan are to test its ability to conduct joint strikes and seize power over the self-ruled island. It comes just days after the inauguration of Taiwan's new president, William Lai, whom Beijing refers to as a dangerous separatist. Chinese Navy vessels and aircraft are conducting large-scale drills in the Taiwan Strait. It includes areas around the islands of Kinmen, Matsu, Wuqiu, and Dongyin. The Chinese Defense Ministry says the second day of exercises have started and they are expected to last throughout the day. Chinese state broadcaster CCTV reported yesterday that military forces are conducting mock strikes on high-value enemy targets. The drills are the most significant since similar exercises took place in August 2022 and April of last year. Analysts say the latest exercises are geographically wider in scope but smaller in scale. The first day of drills also did not involve live fire near Taiwan. Beijing has called the exercise a, quote, strong punishment and have vowed bloodshed and suffering for recent separatist acts. The foreign ministry also sent out a strong warning, saying those who support the island's secession will have their heads bashed bloody.
一切台独分裂行径都将遭到14亿多中国人民迎头痛击。一切台独分裂势力都将在中国实现完全统一的历史大势面前撞得头破血流。
China's military exercises prompted Taiwan to scramble fighter jets and put its missile, naval, and land units on alert. Taiwan's defense ministry has said the island is not seeking conflict, but will not shy away from one. President William Lai has vowed to defend the values of freedom and democracy in the face of what he called external challenges and threats. He was at a pre-planned visit to a military base in Taoyuan.
我会和国军弟兄姐妹站在第一线，共同守护国家安全。此时此刻，国际社会正高度关注民主台湾。
Israel has launched more strikes on Gaza while also expressing readiness to resume stalled truce talks with Hamas. Fierce street battles are raging in Gaza where armed wings of Hamas and Islamic Jihad are reportedly firing mortar barrages at Israeli troops. The Israeli military said its troops are still operating in the southern city of Rafah, in central Gaza, and in Jabalia in the north. Gaza authorities say dozens have been killed. Medics have warned that there is only one hospital left in central Gaza, and that could stop functioning due to a lack of fuel. The International Court of Justice is expected to rule today on South Africa's request to order a halt to Israel's Rafah offensive. Ahead of the World Court ruling, Netanyahu's government says it won't be deterred from pursuing its war against Hamas. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant patrolled the Gaza coast with Navy officials, and he added that Israel remains undeterred on Rafah.
אנחנו מחזקים את המאמץ שלנו מול רפיח. הפעולה הזאת תלך ותתגבר. עוד כוחות מהקרקע, עוד כוחות מהאוויר, תמרון, ואנחנו נגיע למטרות שלנו. להכות קשה מאוד את החמאס, לשלול את היכולות הצבאיות שלו, להביא לכך שאנחנו יוצרים את כל התנאים על מנת להחזיר את החטופים אל ביתם. זה דבר חשוב, זה נושא מרכזי עבורנו, ואנחנו נעשה כל מאמץ על מנת ליישם אותו בכל הדרכים.
President Joe Biden says the U.S. does not recognize the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court after its prosecutor, Karim Khan, requested for warrants against Israeli and Hamas leaders. He implied that both sides are not the same and shouldn't be facing equal action.
We've made our position clear on the ICC. We don't recognize the jurisdiction of ICC, the way it's being exercised, and it's that simple. We don't think there's an equivalence between what Israel did and what Hamas did.
The U.S. has supported previous actions taken by the international law on the Palestinian issue. Our Asia Business Update is up next, including U.S. regulators pave the way for a potential launch of exchange-traded funds that invest directly in the world's second-largest digital asset, Ether. Japan's core consumer prices rise more slowly for April, continuing the trend from the month prior with milder food inflation.
Kenya's President William Ruto meeting with a bipartisan group of senators on Capitol Hill on Wednesday, the first African leader to make an official state visit to the United States in more than 15 years. His three-day trip comes as Nairobi prepares to deploy troops to Haiti as part of a United Nations-led intervention that aims to calm a spiraling security crisis in the Caribbean country.
We're really grateful for Kenya's partnership in opposing extremists around the world and partnering together to oppose al-Shabaab and the jihadists and stand against the Houthis in the Red Sea and other places. And we're really grateful for what Kenya has done to assist with Haiti in recent days in our hemisphere to try to keep stability. And we applaud all of the good work and leadership that you championed with regard to the anti-corruption laws and all those things. Really, really important.
We are celebrating this year 60 years of a solid friendship between the United States and Kenya, sharing in many areas, as you have said correctly, in the space around peace and security. I think we have common positions on working with different countries to see how to resolve challenges of security. For example, in the Horn of Africa, we have security challenges in Somalia, and as you have said correctly, we have been fighting al-Shabaab for the last almost 20 years. And part of the conversation we're going to have is on how we can make sure that the drawdown of ATMIS troops does not create a vacuum that will end up being filled by al-Shabaab.
Ruto said there needs to be a condition-based withdrawal of US troops in the region rather than a calendar-based one. Chad's President-elect Mohamed Idris Deby Itno was sworn in on Thursday at a ceremony attended by several leaders from the region. His inauguration came a week after the Constitutional Council confirmed he'd won the disputed May the 6th election outright with 61% of the vote. He seized power 3 years ago after the death of his father Idris Deby, who'd ruled Chad with an iron fist for 3 decades.
Mohamed Idris Deby Itno, Président de la République, élu selon les lois du pays.
Opposition leader Succès Masra, a staunch opponent of the junta, won an 18.5% share of the vote. He contested the results of the election, which international NGOs described as neither credible nor free. Masra resigned as Prime Minister on Wednesday and did not attend the ceremony.
A funeral procession fit for a president. Thousands of mourners poured out Thursday to accompany late President Ibrahim Raisi to his burial place in eastern Iran. A large truck carried Raisi's coffin through the city of Birjand, surrounded by a somber crowd. Mourners, mostly dressed in black, held placards of Raisi and waved flags. Others were tossing scarves to be placed on the casket for a blessing. Raisi, who was killed in a helicopter crash in Iran's northwest on Sunday, was interred at the Imam Reza Shrine in Mashhad, the holiest site for Shia Muslims in the country. He's the first top politician in Iran to be buried at the shrine. Tehran has set June 28th as the date for the next presidential election.
The goal that made history for Ademola Lookman. His stunning hat-trick in Atalanta's 3-0 win over Bayer Leverkusen handed his team the Europa League title, only the Italian club's second major trophy in its 117-year history, and ending the German champions' unbeaten streak.
Yeah, we played a fantastic game tonight. In all areas, I think from the first minute we showed our intent. We played a fantastic first half, and in the second half we didn't rest on our laurels. We kept pushing, and we got opportunities, and we yeah, we won the game today.
The London-born Nigerian forward struggled to establish himself in the English Premier League before reviving his career in Italy to become only the 6th person to score a hat-trick in a European final.
I've always had the confidence in my ability to, to create, to score goals, to help my teammates, assist them. And, in the past 2 years, like I said, I've been able to take my game to a new level and been able to show that on a more consistent basis.
And the crowd went wild at the stadium in Dublin as Atalanta became the first Italian winners of the competition in 25 years. Atalanta has always delivered incredible results, but tonight they've shown how to play football. Lookman and Scamacca, they've always done incredible things. Beautiful, great, this is a huge emotion. We were chasing this goal for many years and we've done it. Thank God. Thank everybody, supporters and players.
That's all news for today. Thank you for watching. I'm Shakil 5858. I am Amir Budnam. Take care of yourself and have a good life.